The crisp morning light filtered through the sheer curtains, casting a warm glow over the bedroom. Elizabeth stirred, blinking away the remnants of sleep as she reached for her phone on the nightstand. A slight smile tugged at her lips as she scrolled through the notifications, her thumb hovering over a particular message. Beside her, James shifted, his arm draping over her waist in a familiar embrace. Elizabeth tensed for a moment, then relaxed, letting out a soft sigh. She typed out a quick reply, her fingers moving deftly across the screen before setting the phone down and snuggling back under the covers. Downstairs, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafted through the air, mingling with the sizzle of bacon on the skillet. William, Elizabeth's father, stood at the stove, his brow furrowed in concentration as he expertly flipped the bacon strips. He glanced up as Elizabeth padded into the kitchen, tying her robe tightly around her waist. "Morning, sweetheart," he greeted, his voice gruff but laced with warmth. "Sleep well?" Elizabeth offered a tight-lipped smile, reaching for a mug from the cupboard. "Yeah, I guess," she mumbled, pouring herself a steaming cup of coffee. William studied her for a moment, his gaze lingering on the phone clutched in her hand. He'd noticed the change in her demeanor over the past few weeks, the furtive glances, the secretive smiles, the way she seemed to withdraw into her own little world whenever the phone chimed. "Everything okay?" he ventured, flipping off the stove and transferring the bacon to a paper towel-lined plate. Elizabeth's head snapped up, her eyes wide. "What?" "Oh, yeah, everything's fine," she assured him, taking a sip of her coffee. "Just work stuff, you know how it is." William nodded, but the crease in his brow deepened. He knew his daughter better than anyone, and something didn't sit right with him. As a retired cop, he'd learned to trust his instincts, and right now, they were screaming that something was amiss. The sound of footsteps on the stairs interrupted his thoughts, and James shuffled into the kitchen, his hair tousled and his eyes still heavy with sleep. "Morning," he mumbled, planting a kiss on Elizabeth's cheek before reaching for his own mug. Elizabeth stiffened slightly, her phone vibrating in her hand. She glanced down, her expression shifting subtly as she read the message. "Everything all right, Lizzie?" James asked, his brow furrowing in concern. Elizabeth forced a smile, slipping the phone into the pocket of her robe. "Yeah, of course," she replied, her voice a little too bright. "Just a work thing. No big deal." James nodded, seemingly satisfied with her answer, but William caught the fleeting look of unease that flickered across her face. He said nothing, but his mind was whirring, piecing together the clues he'd been observing. As the day wore on, William's suspicions only deepened. He noticed the way Elizabeth's phone seemed to be an extension of her hand, her fingers constantly tapping away at the screen. He saw the way she would linger in the shower after her evening workout, emerging with a flushed complexion and a secretive smile playing on her lips. And then there were the late-night texts, the muffled whispers as she ducked into another room to take a call. William knew the signs all too well, having witnessed countless cases of infidelity during his years on the force. As he watched Elizabeth bid James goodnight with a perfunctory kiss, her phone already in hand, William felt a familiar ache settle in his chest. He adored James, practically raised the boy after his own son had moved away. The thought of Elizabeth deceiving such a good man twisted his gut into knots. But what could he do? Confront her outright and risk driving a wedge between them? Or bide his time, gather evidence, and hatch a plan, a unique, non-violent form of revenge that would expose the truth without causing irreparable damage? William settled into his favorite armchair, his mind churning as he formulated his strategy. He would get to the bottom of this, one way or another. And if his suspicions were confirmed, Elizabeth would soon learn that no one crossed a retired cop with a nose for trouble, especially when it came to protecting those he loved. The next morning, William rose early, his plan already taking shape. He donned his favorite baseball cap and headed out the door, making his way to the local coffee shop, a popular haunt for the town's residents. As he stepped inside, the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee enveloped him, mingling with the buzz of conversation and the clatter of ceramic mugs. William scanned the room, his eyes landing on a familiar figure hunched over a laptop in the corner. Josh, Elizabeth's gym buddy, according to the whispers William had overheard. With a casual nod, William made his way over, a friendly smile plastered on his weathered face. "Mind if I join you?" he asked, gesturing to the empty chair across from Josh. Josh glanced up, his brow furrowing for a moment before recognition dawned. "Oh, sure, no problem," he replied, closing his laptop and pushing it aside. William settled into the chair, reaching for the pot of coffee and pouring himself a steaming cup. "Beautiful morning, isn't it?" he remarked, taking a sip and savoring the rich flavor. Josh nodded, his gaze flickering back to his laptop. "Yeah, I guess," he mumbled, clearly distracted. William leaned back, studying the younger man for a moment. "You know, I've seen you around the gym before," he ventured, his tone casual. "You must work out a lot to stay in such great shape." Josh perked up at the compliment, a hint of a smirk tugging at his lips. "Yeah, I try to get in a few sessions a week," he replied, puffing out his chest slightly. "Gotta keep up with the ladies, you know?" William chuckled, nodding in understanding. "Ah, yes, the ladies," he mused, taking another sip of his coffee. "I'll bet you have a different one on your arm every week, eh?" Josh's smirk widened, and he leaned forward conspiratorially. "Let's just say I like to keep things interesting," he said, his voice low. "Like this one woman I've been seeing lately, man. She's something else. Beautiful, successful, married to some poor schmuck who has no idea what's going on right under his nose." William felt his blood run cold, but he kept his expression carefully neutral. "Is that so?" he murmured, gesturing for Josh to continue. And Josh did, all too eager to brag about his conquest. He regaled William with sordid details, oblivious to the fact that he was digging his own grave with every word. He spoke of unique workout routines and clandestine rendezvous, his eyes gleaming with a smug sense of satisfaction. William listened, his stomach churning with each revelation, but he maintained his friendly demeanor, nodding and asking the occasional question to keep Josh talking. Over the next few weeks, their accidental meetings at the coffee shop became a regular occurrence. Josh, basking in the attention of an eager listener, grew bolder in his storytelling, divulging more and more intimate details about his affair with Elizabeth. And William absorbed it all, his anger simmering beneath the surface as he gathered the ammunition he needed. Finally, when he felt he had enough information, William made his move. He reached out to James, arranging a boys' night out, a fishing trip they used to take together when James was just a boy. The night before the trip, William invited James over, his heart heavy with the burden he was about to unleash. As they sipped beers on the back patio, William cleared his throat, his expression grave. "Son, there's something I need to tell you," he began, his voice thick with emotion. "It's about Elizabeth." James frowned, setting his beer down on the table. "What about her?" he asked, his brow furrowing in concern. William took a deep breath, steeling himself for the onslaught of pain he was about to inflict. "She's been having an affair," he said, the words hanging heavy in the air between them. James stared at him, his mouth agape, shaking his head in disbelief. "What? No, that's impossible," he stammered, his hands trembling. "Elizabeth would never." But William pressed on, recounting every sordid detail Josh had so eagerly shared, painting a vivid picture of Elizabeth's deception. He spoke of the late-night texts, the hidden phone calls, the unique workout routines that were anything but innocent. As the truth sank in, James crumpled, his face contorting with anguish. Tears streamed down his cheeks as he processed the betrayal, the rug pulled out from under him by the woman he loved more than anything. William watched, his heart shattering for the man he considered a son, but he knew this was the only way. Elizabeth had to face the consequences of her actions, and James deserved the truth, no matter how painful. The next morning, the fishing trip took an unorthodox turn. Instead of heading to their usual secluded spot, William steered the truck toward the local radio station, a plan formulating in his mind. James, still reeling from the revelations of the previous night, followed in a daze, his eyes hollow and his shoulders slumped. At the station, William explained his idea to James, who nodded numbly, too lost in his own despair to protest. They would share their story anonymously on a popular afternoon show, exposing Elizabeth's infidelity to the world without directly implicating her or her lover. And so, with a voice thick with raw emotion, James poured out his heart, detailing the betrayal, the heartbreak, and the unique workout routines that had torn his life asunder. The radio host, known for his no-holds-barred approach, was floored by the candid confession. Without hesitation, he broadcast the story live, turning it into a social media frenzy that spread like wildfire through the town. Within hours, Elizabeth's workplace, a prestigious law firm, was flooded with calls from outraged listeners. Josh's company, a reputable accounting firm, received a similar barrage, as the sordid details of their unique workout routine became the most talked-about scandal in recent memory. William watched from the shadows, his heart heavy but resolute. Humiliation, the ultimate weapon in his nonviolent arsenal, had struck. Elizabeth and Josh would soon learn the consequences of their actions, their reputations forever tarnished by the public exposure of their betrayal. The fallout was swift and merciless. Within days, Elizabeth's once pristine reputation lay in tatters, the subject of hushed whispers and not-so-subtle jabs at her prestigious law firm. Clients began withdrawing their cases, their trust shattered by the sordid revelations about their high-powered attorneys' extracurricular activities. Elizabeth, her world crumbling around her, found herself ostracized by colleagues who once sought her counsel. Meetings were rescheduled, hallway conversations abruptly ended as she approached, and her once coveted office became a virtual isolation chamber. Josh fared no better. The reputable accounting firm where he worked was inundated with calls from outraged clients, demanding explanations and threatening legal action. His once promising career hung by a thread as the partners scrambled to contain the public relations nightmare. Everywhere they went, judging eyes followed, whispers trailed in their wake. The unique workout routine that had once been their scandalous little secret was now the talk of the town, a cautionary tale of betrayal and deceit. Desperate to salvage what was left of their lives, Elizabeth and Josh clung to each other, united in their shared humiliation. But even their twisted bond offered little solace as the weight of their choices bore down upon them. It was in the midst of this chaos that James, emboldened by the outpouring of support from friends and colleagues, made his move. With a heavy heart, he confronted Elizabeth, the woman he had once sworn to love and cherish until death did them part. The confrontation was explosive, fueled by years of pent-up anguish and betrayal. Elizabeth, her defenses crumbling under the weight of her transgressions, offered no justifications, no excuses. She could only cower in the face of James' raw pain, the stark reality of her choices laid bare for all to see. In that moment, James found a strength he never knew he possessed. With a resolve forged in the fires of heartbreak, he filed for divorce, severing the ties that had once bound them together. As the dust settled, James emerged from the ashes, a man reborn. He found solace in the unwavering support of those who had stood by him, their loyalty a salve for his battered soul. Slowly, he began to rebuild his life, piece by piece, discovering a newfound sense of purpose and self-worth. Elizabeth and Josh, on the other hand, remained forever linked by the chains of their public shame. They tried, in vain, to salvage what was left of their lives, but the damage was irreparable. Doors that had once been open to them slammed shut, opportunities withered on the vine, and the specter of their betrayal loomed over every step they took. Through it all, William remained a silent observer, his heart heavy with the knowledge of the pain he had inflicted upon his own daughter. He knew he couldn't erase the consequences of her actions, but he took no joy in her suffering. In his eyes, he had done what was necessary to protect the man he considered a son, the one constant in his life when his own flesh and blood had drifted away. As the years passed, William never spoke of his role in the unraveling of Elizabeth's life. It was a burden he carried alone, a silent penance for the choices he had made in the name of justice and loyalty. And though the scars never fully healed, James found solace in the knowledge that he had emerged from the ashes of his former life, stronger and wiser, his spirit tempered by the fires of betrayal. For in the end, the truth had set him free, even if the cost had been higher than anyone could have imagined. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.